Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we continue our reading of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, London, A Dream Fulfilled. Thank you. Already got that there, dream fulfilled. C'est vraiment le marque-page. London, dream fulfilled.
No,
Je me suis trompé. Je voulais mettre.
not sure. Just asking which page. They don't tell us
Qu'on
the
était,
page usually.
il semble que quelqu'un ait déplacé le marque-page parce qu'on était India Revisited.
Yeah, India we had. Hare Krishna land and such.
Quelqu'un se rappelle où est-ce qu'on était?
Mais je sais que la fois il parlait de monde, donc ça doit être long.
New Jagannath Puri,
Last week Sunday was in the kitchen. So.
India Revisited partout. Ouais, peut-être. Limited Opportunity. Ah oui, 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 d'accord. Ouais, non, ça doit être ça. So, we are there in London, where 3 couples were sent as the pioneer of Krishna consciousness in the East, in the European continent. So first, India, Prabhupada tried to spread Krishna consciousness in India with different mediums. He failed. Then he went to New York, and then he got some success. Then San Francisco, the West Coast, then East Coast, then West Coast. Then Montreal, Canada, and then some disciples went to India. 3 couples. Grihastha Brahmachari, let's say. Very renowned couples. And they arrived in London. So here we are. At 4:30, Prabhupada's secretary Purushottam entered, followed by Yamuna Dasi. Purushottam offered hearty to Prabhupada's small Radha Krishna deities, while Yamuna watched, eager to learn. Prabhupada sang prayers, accompanying himself on the harmony. During Prabhupada's Mangalarti ceremony, the other dozen or so disciples assembled for their own Mangalarti at the temple. As they walked the damp pathway to the temple, they felt the cold air and heard the bell and Prabhupada singing. They could see through the pre-dawn mist the light coming from Prabhupada's windows on the second floor, and the building looked like a lantern in the dark. The sound of the harmonium drifted mystically through the trees. Later that morning, some of the devotees brought Prabhupada several news articles about his London arrival. The daily sketch, with its heading, "Enter His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Swami," carried a foot-height photo of Prabhupada playing cartoons. The Sun's story, "Happiness is Hare Krishna," appeared with a photo of Prabhupada and the devotees, and the Daily Mirror showed Saraswati and one of the adult devotees. The Daily Telegraph, however, carried a different kind of article: "Hindu temple protests. Conversion of office premises in Bloomsbury into a Hindu temple is being investigated by the Ministry of Public Buildings and Works," the article began. The devotees' neighbors at Bury Place had apparently complained about the renovation that had been going on for the past 2 weeks. The article quoted a Camden Council member: "If their planning application is not granted, it will cost them a lot of money." Prabhupada said the devotees should do everything they could to prevent delays or obstacles to their establishing the temple and installing deities of Radha and Krishna. It suggested they go daily into the city, work carefully and persistently with the officials, and secure the authorization. Meanwhile, Shyamasundar would continue his remodeling work at Bury Place. For Prabhupada, such diplomatic and legal strategy was as spiritual as translating Krishna or singing before his deities. He was serious, heavy, and his disciples sensed this as he looked at them with full concentration, his intelligent gaze penetrating to see if they understood his directions. His heaviness of the Guru was an essential part of their relationship with him. They were young men, inexperienced, and he was sending them on a mature assignment that required both transcendental and worldly expertise. Serving as Prabhupada's manual messenger and worker, his disciple imbibed his gravity, and they too became heavy. They too became dedicated servants of their Guru. To bungle an important order because of naivety or carelessness would be a spiritual disqualification. Prabhupada had often told them a Vaishnava is not a retired person who only sleeps and eats and chants Hare Krishna. Rather, a Vaishnava fights for Krishna, as did Arjuna and Hanuman, and as the devotees tried their best. Walking in full surrender, Krishna supports and protects him. Shri Chaitanya Manu Vishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Hare Krishna Karina Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopeshna Gopika Kantarada Kantanamastute Tapta Kanchana Garange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamanu Sutedevi Pranamami Haripriya Manchaka Patarubhya Shakri Pasindu Jaivacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we see that Prabhupada is encouraging his disciple to take some risks and also to repair some mistakes, because what apparently we understand that apparently the devotees started to do some work, some adaptation of the building for establishing the temple. Like everywhere, when we purchase or where we rent a place, there's many arrangements to be done so that the deity can be at ease and the service of the devotee can be fit for receiving people and worshipping Radha Krishna and Gaunita and Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. It's a lot of people all of a sudden in a small building, like it was normal at this time. So, of course, the neighbors, they noticed it, and some neighbors were not happy with the arrival of the devotee, and they complained. So the devotee adapt to the situation and legalize the transformation. Like we had the same problem with noisy ground when we shifted the DVDs that were in Hermenonville, in the far suburb of Paris, due to some heavy problems. The deities had to come back and were installed in the next room. And not even after 1 year, the deities were shifted again in Paris, in a close suburb of Paris, noisy. It became noisy now. And at this time it was known that so much building like here. And we installed the deity in a big house. And the neighbors, they start complaining. Many people are here, the kirtan are loud. The refuse is overflowing because it was not connected. There was no connection like now directly with the city system. It was individual. So there was a kind of drain in the garden to be built in order to evacuate all the water the devotees were consuming, and they were consuming a lot of water. So the water, the grey water was evacuated underground with pipes. So the devotee had to adapt, do a lot of adaptation. And here in this building in Giri place, they had to replace a lot of things. The Beatles, they asked to Mick Jagger to sponsorize the team, how do you say? They put timbers, iron timbers, in order to readapt the building for a temple. It means there was a lot of transformation going on. Stone and the gravel to evacuate, or a lot of things you have to evacuate when you build and you destroy things. So, the devotee afterwards, when they saw the neighbor were complaining, they went to the police, the department official. They had to legalize. We want to do this, and they were taking risk because maybe they will not be granted the authorization. So they were confident in Krishna, and it worked. Later on, we will see that it worked. Dawn arrived, and time for Prabhupada's morning walk. The cold September night shrouded the morning in heavy fog. Some of the low-lying grounds were waterlogged this time of year, and even in the higher plots, the long grass would remain wet until mid-morning. This climate, Prabhupada admitted, is not at all suitable for me. But having heard of the beauty of the grounds, he insisted on taking his usual morning walk. Tittenhurst dated back to the 1770s, when the estate had been renowned for its many varieties of trees and shrubs. one of the most unusual collections in England. Even now, cypresses, I don't know, you'd say, cypresses, weeping beech, Austin poplars, royal palms, redwoods, varieties of pines, monkey puzzle trees, and all kinds of cherry and apple graced the stately grounds. One cypress stood more than 125 feet tall, and the redwoods grew even taller. Bushes and vines grew in dense thickets. Close to the main house were hundreds of rhododendrons, a former rose garden, and several fountains. The estate had its own lake, stocked with goldfish and perch, and at far end of the property stood a row of greenhouses for grapes and peaches. Designed so as to be a bloom in every season, the grounds had been carefully kept for generations. A recent owner having employed more than 20 gardeners. John, however, was deliberately allowing the grass to go uncut. John, however, was deliberately allowing the grass to go uncut. Prabhupada walked out into the morning mist, onto the long, wet grass. Dressed almost entirely in black, he wore a Russian hat with earmuffs and black rubber Wellington boots. A black, full-length overcoat given him by the devotees in Germany covered his robes and sweater, leaving only a glimpse of saffron cloth. As Prabhupada walked, accompanied by several of his disciples, he passed a fountain near the main house and entered the grove. The path narrowed, with vine and bushes closing, and led them into an open meadow, once a well-tended lawn, but now a field of high grass. Bulldozers are excavating an area which, according to rumor, would soon be a helicopter landing field. At the bottom of the sloping meadow, Prabhupada entered an orchard. Many leaves had fallen from the trees, and the sun's first rays now revealed shavings of autumn gold at Prabhupada's feet. He stood under one of the trees, and the diffused sunlight made the sky beyond the branches grow golden. In my childhood, he said, there were so many names given to me. My maternal uncle called me Nandu, because I appeared the day after Krishna appeared, and there was a great celebration on that day. I was called Nandu because I was born the day after Krishna. And I was also called Govardhan. One of my sisters used to call me Kacha. I've been called so many names. As children, we were all very beautiful. There are always so many names given to them. But all these names, they are all dead and gone. We turn and began to walk again, saying nothing more on the subject. The notion of name. Prabhupada would say, so many names going, coming and going, like waves in an ocean. This designation, this one, here and there. They are all ephemeral, because everything in this material world is ephemeral.
Nandu, what's the meaning of Nandu? The day after, or something like this?
I don't know the Nandu.
Yeah.
I'm not in the Indian culture. You have to ask to someone who is from India. I'm not so much in the topic with the names in India and like that.
It looks to Nandini, yeah?
Nandi is a bull of Shiva. Nandu is different. It's a common name in India. A lot of people have this name, Nandu. Catch up. And another one, Govardhan. So everybody knows Govardhan. Prabhupada mentioned the British economy, which he said was sinking into the sea because of the pound's devaluation. So many British lords had gained their wealth by exploiting other nations. Now, having exhausted their good karma, they were suffering the results of their sins. They were too poor to maintain their great estates. They used to have 17 men working full-time just on the garden, Prabhupada explained. And now they cannot even pay the taxes, so they have to give the whole thing up, and it is falling into the hands of the Shudras. So even at this time, Prabhupada was explaining how the British economy was twisted, and by extension the Western world economy, European economy, American economy, where they loot the third world country. Basically, they loot people who have no weapons and who are just depending on their little agricultural fields or jungle or like that. They are not rich, they are not industrialized, they have no weapons, so they cannot defend themselves from the bigger and more powerful countries. So they were invaded with always the show humanization, industrialization. We come as friends, we give you education, school,
civilization,
organization, everything, but in fact the whole scheme is to arrange exploitation of the riches, and you give little kernels to the local people. So it has been going on in Africa, South America, everywhere. It's going this way. Because, European and Americans, they build their riches on the riches of others. It's going on for centuries, it has been going on for millennia like that, with demoniac people. You see, there's no red-skinned people, they don't exist anymore in America. They've been erased. Same with Gaza people, same stuff. They invade, they want the petrol, and they get rid of the inhabitants, the local, because they want to build their own system, accumulating and like that. So at this time also, the British were exploiting India for the same purpose, for cotton, for sugar, spices, so many things, that they would live on it and make a big business of it, plus the slaves. Slave business is another kind of business that was flourishing at this time. So now also Prabhupada is saying that after some time the wheel of karma turns, and the goddess of fortune chose to give riches to some other countries also, because she is chanchala, unstable. She stays in some place and then another one, like that. Because she sees that her riches are not properly utilized for glorifying the Lord. Then she changed place. So indirectly, it explains why the Indian continent was so rich long time ago. Because they were utilizing the rituals for spiritual advancement. Sacrifices were performed. People were much more peaceful in their little walk. They didn't want so much elephants, Ferrari, swimming pool, second villas, and so many things. They were just in their small field, a small accommodation, and they were satisfied with it because they were spiritually oriented. So the kind of civilization where you get satisfied with little is much better, and that's what we try to give by example to the people at large, or not to let the weeds of so many material desire grow and invade the heart, so that you may not be motivated to run and money to satisfy these illusory desires. And running here and there, making money, appointment, cars, machinery, industry, factory, running all kinds of stuff, making money, satisfying your desire, and then new one comes. And then you have to work more because you desire more. There's no end. It's easy to understand. There's no end to the satisfaction of the senses. Some higher philosophy is to be there in order to check this augmentation, unlimited augmentation. Even Rava, he had conquered the world of the universe, but he wanted more women, more riches, more, always like that. Then after some time, it becomes a nuisance for the world of the universe, and then Krishna intervened in a way or another. So now the situation is quite similar. It's not just a single entity, but it's a prevailing mood of exploiting others to pile up riches and to accumulate in a few little circle of friends who brush their back all together and make arrangements to smuggle everywhere and to manipulate economy the way they want for them to accumulate. So Krishna intervenes in the way that nobody notices now, little by the influence of the holy name, the mind of the people is changing at large, and little by little, like the Srimad Bhagavatam explained in the first canto, a slow revolution is starting to arise in the consciousness of the people. They become aware, especially because information is there, the books are going here and there, everywhere. Then people becomes aware that they are manipulated. So Prabhupada would stress again and again this point how economy was twisted and because basically they have no knowledge of the soul, and they have no knowledge of life is going on after this death. People think mistakenly that once death is here, everything is finished. But no. Body is changing during this life, and it's changing at the time of death also. Ishan asked Prabhupada, how is it that a person like me, from such a degraded background, can come to Krishna consciousness? Because you are intelligent, Prabhupada replied. I don't understand. Yes, because you are intelligent, Prabhupada repeated. Ishan's wife Vibhavati asked, what is the meaning of spiritual master? Actually, I'm not your spiritual master, Prabhupada replied. That title is simply a formality. You should think of me as your spiritual father, your eternal father. As the world passed a tractor, Guru Shekhar remarked, the tractor is a very wonderful invention, isn't it? Prabhupada turned to Guru Shekhar. This tractor is the downfall of the Indian village system. Why is that? It does the work of 10 men. Yes, Prabhupada said. Previously, the young men of the village would be engaged in ploughing the fields. When this tractor came along and did the work of all these young men, and they had nothing to do, so they went to the cities to try to find work, and they fell into illusion. Stopping beside a clump of yellow grass, Prabhupada asked, why is this yellow grass different? No one answered. The other grass is green, he said, but this one is yellow. What's the reason? Still no one answered. This yellow grass is drying up, Prabhupada explained, because the roots are not attached. Therefore it is yellow. Similarly, when we detach ourselves from Krishna, then we will dry up. So, now we go to India. There's thousands of tractors everywhere. When I first went to India in the 80s, tractors were quite rare. There was some, but not that much. And a lot of people were working in the fields. And that's why you had a small patch. When you go to India from far ahead, you see a patchwork of the piece of land, this piece of land. No big piece of land like in Russia or the West. Kilometers of fields. You don't even see the end of the field. So long the field is. So in India, everybody has a plot of land and they cultivate it. Even temples, they had a plot of land for cultivation or for flowers or something like here. And people were living on this and little business. A lot were, it means a lot of people were Vaishya. Depending on the crops, on the bartering or doing business, selling things. So a lot of India are really fit for doing business and being Vaishya. In the West, a lot of are Srila because they are paid and they expect a check at the end of the month. Even you are an engineer or high-class people, you receive a check. It means you are a Srila. Ramananda Roy was rubber stamped as a Srila because he was working for the government and receiving money at the end of the month. After he resigned, he went to reach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He left his business. So when you receive a wage, it means you are in the category of Srila. If you are independent, you do business, you are in the category of Vaishya. So this way of earning your money dress you in a certain category. Of course, when you are a devotee, you fit in this, you can be rubber stamped in this category, but you transcend. You are supposed to transcend if you follow the regulative principle. You read, you chant, you become imbibed with Krishna consciousness. You transcend. But you don't transcend all of a sudden like that. It takes time to change our way of seeing things, not being disturbed by the mind and the object of the senses, and this takes time, not so automatic. So the tractor, they invade everywhere. So tractor means mechanic. It means a lot of iron pieces. It means factories. It means oil producing. It means a lot of people working on these factories. And so to solve a problem, you see so many others. That's the principle of material energy. If you become too sophisticated, then you see so many problems you have to solve also. So machinery is tricky because it's easy for you to use, but after some time there's a failure. You need the assistance of a mechanic, or there is a lack of petrol, or it's too expensive, or something. You solve something, but after some time you realize. So material energy is like that. The more sophisticated it becomes, the more entangling it becomes also. That's why our philosophy, I think. So that's why our philosophy is simply living. Maybe sophisticated and highly thinking, but simply living, not to be bothered too much by too much machinery and things to maintain, and not to be because there is rust, there is chips, there is mechanics, there is so many things, too cold or too hot, so many products together to make the machine working. It may tax the brain. If you are taxed by all this problem, then you diverted yourself from Krishna consciousness. Time is short, the lifetime is short for a human being. Thank you. And concentrating our mind on Krishna, we take at the beginning, we don't take it so much so seriously, but after some time we realize that we need some time to do that efficiently. And when you are diverted, then in some way you lose some time. So here Prabhupada is taking an example that the grass is yellow because it's uprooted. Because there's no water, then it dries up. And similarly, if you are uprooted from Krishna or Vedic way of life, then you dry up little by little. Can't avoid it. And the society is same. They are destroyed, then renew, then destroyed, then renew. So in Kali Yuga, the societies are like that. This king, another one, an emperor, then another one. There's no end to it. Because basically they lost the way of living simply and in a Vedic way. So it's a big challenge for devotees to reinstall the way the way Vedic culture was functioning. Because when Vedic culture is functioning, spiritual life becomes easy, and it is conducive to spiritual life, real spiritual life. So material arrangements have to be there in order for the people to feel naturally inclined to practice spiritual life. Whilst in the situation where we are now, in a materialistic society. It's like swimming opposite the stream, because everything is unconducive to spiritual life. Be it the billboards, the radio, the television, the internet, everything that goes through the doors of the centers that imbibes the mind is perfume with a materialistic way of life. So to reverse the steam is not an easy thing. You have to really fire the sword of knowledge. Yadatemo akakilam buddhi vyatitarishat. When your intelligence will cross the dense forest, the dense jungle of illusion with the sword of knowledge, then nothing will seem to you interesting in this material world. So the fire, sharpening the sword of knowledge is essential for the devotees. To hear Bhagavatam, to read Prabhupada books, to speak in between ourselves, the philosophy, this sharpens the sword of knowledge. They walked to a spot where the grass grew almost 6 feet high. Stopping at the path, the tractor had cut. Prabhupada smiled. Oh, we can go through there? And he strode ahead with his cane into the head-high jungle of grass and weeds. He walked until he came to a low hill that had been cleared, and it stopped. As he stood there, surrounded by the sea of grass and a few disciples, Kulashekar asked about the song Prabhupada had been singing earlier this morning. This song, Prabhupada said, is about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would rise and he would go out at this time of morning when the sun had risen but is not yet in the sky. As Prabhupada spoke, the mist was already dissipating and the golden glow in the sky had moved higher above the horizon. Prabhupada raised his hands and swayed from side to side. In this way, he said, Prabhupada will dance in the morning. As they returned by the main house, John Lennon stood gazing out through the glass doors, watching. Prabhupada, walking with a cane, dressed in black coat and his Wellingtons, looked like the gentleman of the estate out of for his morning walk. Stopping now and then, he would look at certain trees, touching their bark, rubbing their leaves, inspecting them closely. At the beginning of the walk, a devotee had picked a rose and handed it to him, and he still held it in his hand with care. He had walked for an hour. Everywhere the scenery had been beautiful, and everywhere he had instructed his followers in Krishna consciousness. So we see how Prabhupada, he liked nice garden, different varieties of trees, of flowers, of everything, grass, this. Demons and devotees they like big gardens. So Prabhupada gives this instruction of here, turn it into Vaikuntha. Make it look like the spiritual world. So it requires a lot of trees, flowers, veggies, fruits, all kinds of things that you can walk on it, have your own. Everybody should do a little, maybe not big stuff like here and there, big fields, but something, a little something, to keep in the spirit. Because living close to the nature is living close to Krishna in a way. You depend on the crops, you depend on the rain, you depend on Krishna ultimately. So principally the men are responsible for the climate. In very ancient times, when something was wrong in the kingdom, or there was a drought, or there was some crime or something, the citizen would go to the king and tell him, what's the matter with that? How is it we have a drought? Why? Who will do that nowadays? Nobody. But at this time, there were drought or problem in the weather. The people who complained to the king, who would then consult the sages and the rishis, and with their inner visions, they could see what was the problem, or because the piousness of the people makes the climate fit or unfit. Impious people, no sun, no rain. Pious people, oppositely. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita. The system is that if you please God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or if you please the devatas, then you practice, you mean you do some sacrifice, then they supply rain. From rain you get crops, grains, and there is no problem for feeding people. So the problem of so many people living on the earth is not really a problem. They have to be pious. Then you will get abundant rain, then abundant crops. So the way they rationalize there's too much people, we have to destroy them. Subtly, that's what they preach now. There's too much people on this earth. Meaning, we want to get the riches, we kill them. And why do you think these laws are going on? Like now in France, euthanasia, legalizing euthanasia. Are you saying English?
Euthanasia?
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 Euthanasia.
Euthanasia?
Yeah, it's the death penalty.
Yes, they advocate for the people to die more quickly because they cost a lot. And if they want to shorten their lives, there's no problem to that. The idea behind this law is what the mondialists advocate, is that there is too much people on this earth. Especially too much old people, or unemployed people, or useless people, or people who are not productive enough. That's what it implies. They want slaves, in other words, this guy's way, they want young slaves that can produce for their benefit at the maximum, and then when they are wounded or too old or sick, squeeze out and thrown away. That indirectly the philosophy that is starting to be promulgated, mondialists. Good program, Rakshasa program. May you have some question or commentary on these topics?
The law that people that are pious and impious, the Western media tells us that Africa is very, very poor, but it's not. It's not a poor place. There's a lot of, even someone from Africa told me last week, it's a very rich continent, and there's not as much poverty as the Western media. I was quite surprised to hear that. Have you heard anything about this before? I mean, of course, in every continent you have poor regions, but in every continent you have poor regions, but doesn't mean to say the whole continent is poor.
Yeah.
That Africa is actually a very wealthy place and people are thriving there as well. We all envisage Africa like a place just full of desert and nobody has anything, but it's not a fact.
It's a desert now. It has not been a desert always.
No.
Desert can be converted, but you have to know the process. Like when Arjuna and the Pandava were given a place for building another Hastinapur, because they couldn't partake the kingdom in two. They were given a desolate place, a desert place. And because they were pious and Krishna was with them, this place became completely different. It started to rain, people start to come. Piousness attracts riches indirectly. People don't know that. Krishna explained in Bhagavad Gita. So indirectly, the piousness of the people influence how the climate will be. The problem is not too hot or too much CO2. This is all technical stuff that has nothing to do. The problem is that there is no rain. If it is hot, 10 degrees hotter, it's super. We don't have too much wood to cut and to heat in the winter. The problem is water. That's the real problem. If there is no rain or little rain, then be it hot or cold, no, don't care. The problem is the water. The heart can become hotter, that's not a problem, like that advocate, because of CO2 or like that. That's just for plundering more people with taxes and new this and limits. The poor one, they cannot have this. Get out. The problem is that they are not pious and then there is no rain, little by little. I'm 70 and I see in 50 years. When I came here, the winter, it was muddy everywhere. We were called New Mayapur, Nouvelle Mayabou.
New Madipur.
New Maya mud. New Maya mud.
It was full of mud. There was no this pavement was not there. So everyone had big boots, high boots, because it was muddy at the whole of the winter, raining always. You see now the winter are super dry. In just a matter of 20, 30, 40 years, nothing. But just in 40, 50 years, you see much change as it has been.
I remember we had snow here. We had snow.
Yeah, we had snow.
We had snow, la neige, winter.
It was normal to have snow, this, for some time,
Yeah.
a couple of weeks,
2 weeks.
like that, you know. Nowadays, out of the way.
No snow.
I think even about snow. Yeah. This you learn from the Veda, that the piety of the people who populate the country infused with the climate. In pious people, no sun, no rain. India, you have more sun, but if you starting to be drought, the system in India was full sun and big monsoon. The water was stored on the ground, and you could get it the whole of the rest of the year, even if it was not raining. But even at the time of Krishna, it was raining at night and the sun during the day. But with the beginning of Kali Yuga, like Yudhishthira said, he noticed some bad omens. He was thinking maybe Krishna left the planet. Because it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that he noticed that the seasons were overlaid, were not properly situated like before. There was some change in the climate and in the seasons. So even at this time, 5,000 years ago, Yudhishthira could notice the weather was changing. So what to speak of nowadays. Kantaraj Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Great Giri Govardhan ki
Jai.